Hey, you guys, happy Friday, happy Friday, happy Friday. I am so excited to be back here tonight with you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of tonight's show. For those of you that are here right now, those of you that are going to catch the replay, I say thank you once again. I am Tamara Johnson. I am the creator of Make It Rise, Rebuild Intentionally and Strategically for Effectiveness. Our mission and our vision for Make It Rise is to create a movement where we're changing the view of how society has defined marriage. So my goal as a healthy marriage advocate is to, and I know you're saying, but we're talking about single stuff, but follow me. So my goal is to help those that are single to do the work to become married, right? And to those who are divorced, to help you put the pieces back together. And for those that are married, to help you continue with a thriving and successful, healthy, happy, and whole marriage. So that is my job. That is what I'm here to do. This is just another avenue, this talk show. Let's be clear, where God has given me, and I'm saying avenue, but the word he gave me was vehicle. It's another vehicle, because if the goal is to get to a specific destination, everything that he has given me to do as a result of Make It Rise, or let's be clear, is just a vehicle to help me get there, right? Many times we have what the goal is. Many times we know what it is we want to do, but it's hard to actually do the work to get there. And sometimes not really hard. We just don't have the discipline to do it, right? And so last week I celebrated a year of doing this show. 1 whole year, 12 months, I have been doing this show, and coming on bi-weekly every other Friday with different topics, different subjects, different couples, singles. And the last thing that I did, the last series that I held, was the single series, which we're continuing tonight, actually. And I promise you, this is the last one. And then we're going to break for a few weeks and come back on for what I'm going to call year 2. So the last series was the single series, and we had 6 different shows that for me, I thought was extremely helpful and needed. It was necessary for those who are those who are doing the work or want to begin to do the work to become a wife, to become a husband, right? There's so many different things in that compartment that we have to be mindful of, that we must do. Not that we should do, that, if we do it, it'll be cool. If we don't do it, it'll be cool. No, that we must, we have to do. And so we're going to come tonight and talk a little bit about some of the things that were discussed in those past 6 sessions with Miss Audra. I'm going to bring her in a few, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, how she would like to introduce herself. But I thought, again, that it was extremely important for us to come back in, and what I say, and another thing, so that we can truly kind of sum up what we've been talking about these past, I guess it's been like 2 months now, these past couple of months. And so I'm trying to see, I don't see Audra in the green room right now, but I'm going to bring her in shortly. Okay, her device is not connected. But again, as I said, I know that having this particular series speaking about, I see you, speaking about these particular topics have been not only helpful for you, but for me. And as I shared with Audra while we were preparing to come on, I shared with her that many times as the host, I don't really get to, I hear everything that's being said, and some things I tap into, and I'm like, okay, I take it personal, like I make it personal, I should say. But it's not until I literally go off and go to the replay and listen to it that I realize that much of what is being said is directly for me. And so at the show, the live that I had last week, when we celebrated being here a year, Michelle Collins, who interviewed me, one of her questions was, which topic over the entire year, which topic actually resonated with you more and why? And so I thought about it, and really it was the whole series, the whole singles series that really stood out for me. And it's because of the season that I'm in. We tend to connect with things that are personal for us, right? And so because I am in a single season, there were a lot of things that were being said by the guests that were directly for Tam. And so, again, I wanted to come back and sum this up, but I'm going to bring Audra in right now and let her introduce herself. Hey, Audra.
Hey, hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing
Good.
good. Good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So Audra and I, we do business together already. We've become friends over the past a year plus. Yeah, over a
Mm-hmm.
year now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I actually sit and co-host with her on the Ladies Delight that we do every Friday. I mean, every fourth Sunday of each month, and it is powerful. If you guys haven't checked it out, please be sure to go to IBG Publications on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
every fourth Sunday. And we have one coming up on the 25th. So you guys make sure, and we'll be posting flyers. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
you tap in. But Audra, please let the folks know who you are. Introduce yourself. Let them know what you do, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Every time someone tells me to introduce myself, I have to like nitpick what I'm going to say that I do because I do so much.
Right.
But I am, for the sake of being very brief, I am an ordained minister, apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so I am the owner and CEO of IBG Publications. IBG stands for Inspired by God. So what we do is we assist writers and help them become published authors. So we market, publish, and coach you to make sure you are getting the most benefit from publishing your book. So we do a whole lot of different things: flyers, marketing, videos,
Yes.
all that good stuff. That's what I do on a daily basis. That's my so-called bread and butter. So I'm a full-time entrepreneur, but I am also the lead chancellor for the Ambassadors Institute, where we teach online courses in biblical education and training. So that is what I do, just wrapped in a very small nutshell.
Awesome. Yes, that's not a small nutshell, but okay, I'll take it. Those are words you want to use. Then look, well, amen. Well, thank you so
Amen.
much. Thank you for your service. Thank you for serving. Thank you for having a servant heart and not just doing it just to do, right? I can always
Yes.
tell when someone is doing something just for the dollar versus they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it. Yes, it's going to bring the dollar, but they're
Right.
doing it because it is what God has called them to do. It is their gift. It is their
Mm-hmm.
purpose, right? It is their
Yes.
assignment. And you've done work
Yes.
for me. And so I've been pleased with everything that you've done for me. You've been
Amen.
professional the entire time. And so I'm grateful to have gained a relationship with you, business and personal. And so
Yes. Me
I
too.
say thank you for serving, right? Because that's what it is. It's serving. So
Yes. Most
as
welcome.
yes, as I was telling the guests, the viewers, um, I've been doing this series for the past couple of months, and it's the single series, and it was just something that I wasn't ready to completely end. But at the same time, there was something still being stirred up in me about just speaking about it one more time before I end, and then
Mm-hmm.
phase into year two with talking about the vow, because year two is going to start off with talking about what the vow is. We're going to break each line down of, the vow, and I'll have couples on that's going to speak to that as it relates to what God says and their own personal experience in that, right? As
Yeah.
married people.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to come back, as I said, that's why I have up here and another thing, because I know that I told folks this is the last one a couple of weeks ago. So I need to come back and say, okay, and another thing. But those last shows, I'm just going to list them. I'm going to name them But before I do that, our foundation scripture for the single series was, "He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and then obtains favor from the Lord," which is Proverbs 18:22.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that scripture because the importance of being found and the importance of finding, right? Many times we switch the roles up, right?
Mm-hmm.
We women nowadays have become very, um, the world would say thirsty, I guess, but women, you know, anxious. I'm going to say anxious.
Okay.
Women have
Okay.
become very anxious, and they say that they are ready. We say that we are ready to be
Mm-hmm.
found, but instead of being found, we are looking, right? So we are doing the finding, and many
Mm-hmm.
times we reach out and find something or accept something, because just because a man say, you are it, you doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you say amen.
Right.
Try
Right.
the spirit, by the spirit, to see if
Mm-hmm.
it's of God,
Mm. Yeah.
and if it's not of God, then you have to move on. One guy told me last week. He said, he's tired of shooting his shot at different. I'm tired of shooting my shot. I said, well, don't shoot your shot until God says that's it. He said, I'm
Right.
running out of bullets, is what he said. I'm running out of bullets. I
Wow.
said, okay,
Wow.
well,
He doing a
don't
lot of
pull the
shooting.
trigger.
He doing a lot of shooting.
You're doing a lot of shooting. Don't pull
Yeah.
the trigger until God says so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
there's some bullets in that gun. Listen here. There's some bullets in there that are going to be needed once you guys come together, right? So
Right.
that one bullet is you shooting the shot for her, the one that God has
Mm-hmm.
called for you. The
Right.
other five in there, depending on what you're shooting, the other bullets in there
Mm.
you're going to need them to help you learn how to communicate with that specific person. That's going to
Right.
help learn how to love her the way that she needs to be
Mm-hmm.
loved. So there's so many shots that are going to need to
Right.
be done in this thing.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
again, we do things so backwards,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I just thought that scripture was fitting for this particular series. So we had Mr. Irvin Pope. He was on and he talked about what I'm looking for in a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We had Branisha. She talked about becoming the good thing, right? We
Mm-hmm.
know that becoming the good thing is not always the easiest,
Right.
because there's so much that is required of
Mm-hmm.
becoming,
Yeah.
right? There's
Mm-hmm.
work
Oh
required
yeah.
in becoming. So, we have to be mindful of that. We had Katish that came and she talked about being revealed by God. So
Mm.
after you are becoming, right, now you've become the woman that God says you need to be for the man that he has for you, or the woman that he has for you. Now you need to be revealed by God. Now,
Mm.
even if you know, okay, I'm ready, that is
Right.
not the time for you to, hey, here I am. I'm
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
the time, right?
Right.
So she talked about being revealed, and then we had Crystal talking about knowing and loving myself before requiring others to. How often do we require others to respect us, love us, and do all of these things that we aren't doing for ourselves? So we should be the teacher. We should teach
Yeah.
them how to love us and how to respect and
Right.
treat us according to how we do that for ourselves. And then our last one was I had Derek Moore and Tiffany Beasley. He talked about let me find you, and her question was, well, where are you looking? And I was
Mm.
like, yeah, where are you looking? Because you could
Mm-hmm.
be looking for me, but where at?
Right.
Where at?
Right.
So Audra, I'm going to ask you: have you been? You're single now, I know that, but have you been married before?
Yes, I have been married before. Very short tenure,
Hmm.
exactly 4 years, actually two together. So yes, have been married.
Okay, okay. And and that's good to hear, because many times, especially as a single woman,
Mm-hmm.
talking to people who are married, it's many times it's a challenge, because they aren't receptive to what, and I'm speaking from personal experience. They aren't
Mm-hmm.
receptive to what it is that is coming out of a single woman's mouth, but not understanding that if that person is in alignment with what God is giving them to speak, it's not
Mm-hmm.
really her that's speaking it,
Right.
or
Right.
him if it's a
Mm-hmm.
man. It's not really them that's speaking it. So, with all of those topics that I mentioned, would you, as a single woman that have been divorced before, would you say that these topics were necessary, that these things were necessary for a single woman or man?
Um, Absolutely. Every topic is necessary because what I think people miss who desire marriage is that becoming your wife, we know that, but being shaped into the wife that you're supposed to be for the mate God has ordained is a process. And I think people miss the process because we want to jump to the finish line. And so that's why you said the guy, he said he was running out of shots. He was running out
Yeah.
of shots because he wasn't even allowing himself to be processed, you know?
Mm,
Because if you're allowing yourself to be processed, you wouldn't be shooting at everything that came your way. And
yeah.
so if he was understanding that, when the reveal came, like you talked about being revealed,
Hmm.
it would have been a revealing of who she is. And when these different ones were coming, then you would say, no, no,
That's not it.
no, because I know what the reveal would look like. It's
Hmm.
just like a friend of mine who I'm here with. She's getting ready to do a baby reveal. Well, she
Hmm.
knows what the baby is, but the mothers don't.
Hmm.
But they're going to find out when the right time comes.
Hmm. Hmm.
When the moment comes, they're going to be
Yeah.
like, oh, that's what I'm having. It's the
Right.
same thing in this process. It's only
Yeah.
going to be revealed when the right moment comes. It's just
Right.
like when a baby is cooking in the oven. Well,
Hmm.
I'm using that as an analogy. But
Right.
when a baby is being shaped in the womb, you're not going to know the sex of it until a certain time period
Yes.
because it has to have gone through those stages before the sex can be revealed. So it's the
Right.
same thing even when you're waiting for a mate or waiting for God to reveal who's the one. Have you allowed whatever process, which is
Yeah.
becoming, which is all the topics that you mentioned,
Yeah.
will lead to the reveal. So you'll be ready, you'll be fully grown, you'll be fully cooked, incubated, whatever word
Right.
we want to use, so
Right.
that when the time comes, you don't have to be shooting blanks or shooting bullets that could be used for something else. So I believe every single topic has been completely, totally necessary. Absolutely.
That's good.
Especially where are you looking at? Because
Yeah.
again, if you going through the process, you would know God's not gonna show me my wife in the club. She ain't in the club, not the woman I'm looking for. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? She
Hmm.
also may not be somebody who's laying on the beach half naked if you know what you're looking for because you've been processed. So I think all the topics were 100% necessary. Absolutely.
And hear me when I say this. When you are in tune with God and His voice, you may not even find your wife in the church,
Right, right,
right?
right.
So
Mm-hmm.
because we can sometimes, and you know how we do as church folks, we
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes think because it's church, everyone in the church is going to be of
Potential.
of
Mm-hmm.
potential. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
in the church, because she's there or because he is there, because we're under the same sound, under the same teaching, this is it.
Yeah,
But you
yeah, yeah.
still have to be available to hear God say
Mm-hmm.
yes or no, because in just like in a hospital, and that's what the church is like, everyone is healing at a different pace. So we can
Mm-hmm.
come into the emergency room at the same time. We can be checked in at the same time. We can have our vitals taken at the same time, our blood, all of these things can be done simultaneously at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not the time, the person for you, it's not it.
Right.
It's not it.
Right.
So just because we walk into the church doesn't mean that everyone in here is saved and everyone in here knows their
Mm-hmm.
purpose and everyone in here is walking the straight and narrow. People are in there for different reasons, right? So people are in the hospital for different reasons. They came in at the same time, but they're there for a different reason. We got to church at 11 o'clock because that's what time it starts. But I'm here for the preacher, for the word. I'm here for the music. I'm here because they got
Mm-hmm.
some fine men in here.
Right,
I'm here,
right.
so everyone is there for a
Yeah,
different reason. And if
right.
you aren't haven't allowed yourself to be revealed by God, you
Mm-hmm.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
to be revealed by God, so He can tell you and show you you.
Right.
When He revealed what's for you, which I wouldn't even say that He would set that person that's ready up, right, for that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not ready,
Right.
so He's not
Right.
going to bring that person to you to mess things up.
Right. 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 Right.
So we
I
we have
agree.
to be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that
Yeah.
because I've met her here, then this is what it is, or him. I keep
Mm-hmm.
saying her, but
Mm-hmm.
because you're a woman. But
Yeah. Yeah.
as a married or as a woman that has been married, Audra, when we talk about knowing and loving myself before requiring others to, and that was one of the topics that Crystal talked about, knowing and loving myself before I require someone else to do it. We say all the time, I do love me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
the smallest things that will say, no, you don't.
Right.
The smallest things. I can ask you, what did you eat this morning? And it could be something that instead of it being something that will help you, it hinders you, your health. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign of, we look at the big, we try and look at the big picture,
Right.
but it's many times the small things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
many times we go into relationship and marriages and we require certain things of people that we aren't even giving to ourselves.
Right. 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 I had to put a very small pin there because last year, about this time, you remember when I released the vow, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what God was dealing with me about.
Yes.
I was going to God about these relationships I was in. I'm like, Lord, they this, they that. And the Lord said to me, you expect someone to treat you better than you're treating yourself. He said,
Mm.
you can't expect someone to give you something you haven't given you because they're only going to love you based on how they see you love yourself. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people miss that very small concept. And it's like you said, it's down to the smallest thing of what are we putting in our mouth,
Yeah.
And at that moment, I realized I'm not loving myself right. Because if I
Yeah.
was, these people wouldn't be in this revolving door coming in and
Yeah.
out of my life, treating me the same way. If you got people coming in your life and it's just the same pattern that everybody's treating you the same way, it's because of what you're projecting. And what you're projecting and what you're showing them is the requirement of a standard of love.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't realize we raised that standard for ourselves. And at that moment, I repented and I said, I made vows to myself. I didn't make vows to God.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
made vows to myself to treat
Mm-hmm.
myself a certain kind of way in several
Mm-hmm.
life areas. Because, like you said, it's not just one particular thing, it's the whole plate.
Yeah.
It's the whole plate that makes up the whole person. So
Absolutely.
it goes back to, like you said, if you're looking at a natural plate and you got, let's say you got some vegetables on a plate, you got a piece of meat, you got a starch or a pasta or a rice, but then you got some potato chips
Yeah.
on that same plate, and you got some cookies in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
not 100% nourishing plate, you
Right.
know
Right.
so if that's what we're feeding ourselves, then that's what we become. It comes through your skin, it comes through
Yeah.
your hair, it comes through it oozes out what
Yeah.
you put in. It's the same thing what we do spiritually. Whatever
Yeah.
we're putting in, that's what's oozing out. So I made
Absolutely.
those vows to myself, and I was just it put me in a better place of love, self-love.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
I totally agree with that.
It's really about boundaries, right? And when we talk about we
Mhm.
have to have boundaries, we automatically think that we are saying we have to have boundaries for other people. But I've
Right.
learned that I have to have boundaries for myself, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
means
Mm-hmm.
going to sleep at a certain hour at night, not being
Mm-hmm.
so available, right? If I'm
Right.
available, and it's not anyone's fault but mine, so
Right.
I can't say, oh my God, they think I'm supposed to always be available for them if I'm still answering the phone at the drop of the dime, if I'm dropping everything that I'm doing so that I can jump to what it is you need me to do, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
about, it's more so about boundaries that we have to create and design for ourselves. Many
Right.
times we just want people to know that we care. We want them to know that we love them, that we support them, right? But what
Mm-hmm.
about me caring about me? What about me supporting and loving me? What about me?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to look in the mirror first. So it's more so boundaries that goes along with the vows that you're talking about,
Right.
self
Right.
vows. So
That's
that
good.
and I read your book. I did a lot of the
The
work.
work.
Oh God,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Audra, what are you doing here? But it made me dig deep,
Yes.
really deep, and
Yes.
exposed it
Mm-hmm.
exposed a lot about me to me.
Yeah.
It made me look in the mirror at myself and not out the window at others,
Right.
which was something that I was accustomed to doing. Even in my
Mm-hmm.
marriage, there were some things that I would, say, well, because you or because he, and if he wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have, then I wouldn't have, right? And so, which leads me to asking you. You said that you were married before, so as a single woman now, I would ask you, what would Audra, the married woman, say what advice would she give to Audra? Let me back up because I want to go all the way out and come all the way back in.
All
So
right.
what would the married Audra, the divorced Audra, sorry, say to the married Audra? What would the divorced Audra say to the married Audra? What advice would she give? Something that you know now that
Mm-hmm.
maybe you knew and maybe you didn't know, but that you didn't execute as a married woman.
I'm definitely going to tell her to learn how to communicate better with your spouse about decisions that you desire to make.
Mm-hmm.
And don't go off doing your own thing as a married woman. That's what I would tell
Mm-hmm.
divorced Audra would tell married Audra.
Mm-hmm.
Your covenant relationship comes first above other relationships. And I had some of that knowledge when I was married because I learned how to protect. But then
Mm-hmm.
I also would advise I would advise that version of Audra. You got to know how far that you can go even in your marriage. You
Yeah.
got to know when is the appropriate time to seek help, and pray that your husband will be receptive to that help.
Mm-hmm.
Learning more. I would tell that Audra, learn how to pray more
Mm-hmm.
concerning your marriage. Learn how to really truly intercede. Learn when to speak and when not to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And don't take everything so personal. Because we truly, really do wrestle not against flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And if we truly understood that the enemy hates covenant relationships,
Yeah.
then we would understand that he's coming for the covenant. Because if he can break the covenant, then he's broken so many forces against him.
Yeah.
And divorced Audra needs to tell married Audra, your covenant waged more war against the enemy than you did alone. And
Wow.
because up until that point, I was so used to being a solo soldier, I
Yeah.
didn't know how to, become this is a team now. It's not
Yeah.
just me. I don't have to make decisions about myself. It's
Right.
not just about what my well being is and what makes
Mm-hmm.
me comfortable, or what I hear God say something and I want to jump up and run on what God has said. And it
Yeah.
doesn't work like that in a covenant relationship. But you both
Right.
have to come to some level of agreement,
Right. Right.
because if you don't come to some level of agreement, it's going to be a major clash, and you just can't. And I don't know if I would say it's not so much that you're trapped, it's more so that you just don't get to operate on your own free will anymore as a married
Right.
woman. Like, you have to bring that under subjection to the
Yeah.
covenant, not so much just under him, but the agreement that the two of you made together. You have to
Mm-hmm.
bring your
Mm-hmm.
will under subjection to that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
and I didn't want to bring my will, because I felt like what I chose to do was a great choice. It's
Yeah.
good for all of us, and you
Yeah.
just gotta line up to what I know is best. And it
Right.
became
Right.
it became very I don't have a word, but it became very detrimental,
Mm-hmm.
trying making decisions without consulting, and
Mm-hmm.
learning the effect of, well, I just went along with your decision because you were
Yeah.
headstrong and you just want to do that, and so I just went along with it.
Right.
And it's like that's not being submitted to the covenant.
Yeah.
So that I would definitely tell that woman, you need to learn how that it's not about what you think. It's not just
Yeah.
about what your ideology is of what is right.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
that's what I would definitely advise.
That's good. It reminds me of, because you're talking about communication. I like to talk about effective communication
Mm-hmm.
often. And what I want us to understand is that sometimes effective communication is saying nothing. Being
Right.
effective with what you're saying is not saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many times just being quiet and hearing God, or allowing him or her to say what they need to say, and then going to
Mm-hmm.
God on the behalf of what you're feeling, your emotion
Right.
towards what's being said or what's being done, can be the
Mm-hmm.
most effective, right? We don't always have to say something just because someone says, what
Right.
they say. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
being, accustomed to doing things solely, like by yourself. So that in itself says, I'm independent. I don't really need. I just, this is, I desired, I wanted it, but I don't need that because I've been doing this by myself. We
Right.
can get
Right.
a little headstrong, women. We can get
Mm-hmm.
headstrong, and INDE. We start singing the song. I'm independent. I got my own car, my own house, and
Mm-hmm.
you're here, yes. But if you leave, then I'm not gonna miss anything. But God says,
Right.
if you committed to the commitment, then yeah, actually you are, because if this is who I brought to you, and you guys, the two are becoming one, then there is something that he brings to the table. There is something that she brings to the table that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have, that you do need,
Right.
in this
Right.
covenant. And
Right.
I'm reminded that even with, I'm gonna say, entrepreneurs, we still need people. We still
Mm-hmm.
need, whoever we're serving. We
Right.
have to listen to them. We have to listen to
Mm-hmm.
their need, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
we
yeah.
are serving, and so that, let me back up, because that is a very big part of marriage. Marriage is serving,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd
Yeah.
say if you
Yeah.
aren't ready to serve, you aren't ready for marriage, right?
Yeah.
And I mean
Yeah.
serve his or her need, not your own need, because
Right.
too often we're serving our need and we're saying, I'm trying to show him how I like it, or I'm trying to show her what I want her to do, and God is saying, no,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it backwards. That's not the job. Serve her need, which
Right.
opens up their tunnel to serving your need. Now we're serving each
Right.
other, and we are giving God the glory while we serve,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
as I said, that relationship between, the entrepreneur who think, I got my own business, so I do it the
Mm-hmm.
way I want to do it, but there's still a
Rules,
level.
regulations.
Yes, there's still rules, regulations. You still answer to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
still answer to somebody. You're still serving. You have to serve the need of, regardless to what field of line of work you're in, you still have to serve the need
Right.
of, who you're serving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even with that, Melanie says we do God the same way. We make a decision first
Mm.
and ask him to bless it later.
Right.
So backwards.
Right.
I often act like I don't need God. Melanie, we all do it. I think
Mm.
Audrey and I were just talking about that before we got on here, how we
Yeah.
make decisions and
Yeah.
then pretty much be like, okay, God, here, bless this mess,
Right. Right.
and because he's so merciful and because he loves
Yes.
us and he's so gracious, is what you were saying
Mm-hmm.
earlier, Audra. There's
Yeah.
some things that he is going to pat us on, right?
Yeah.
But you best believe that he is going to teach us, right? What was the original design for it. You're going to get that.
Yeah.
He's going to show you what the original design was, and it's going to give you a view of the difference from when
Right.
I choose from my own will versus saying, okay, Lord, let your will be done.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Melanie, for sharing that, because that's we really need to start being okay with saying, Lord, let your will be done. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even when it doesn't feel good or look good, it's like, but I trust
Mm-hmm.
you. And at the end of the
Right.
day, it's got to be us trusting Him.
Yeah.
So you talked about um, as a wife, as the divorced Audra speaking
Mm-hmm.
to the married Audra. So what would the married Audra, while you were married, if you could think about that, as a married woman, what would you have told the engaged Audra?
Hmm. Spend more time really getting healed.
Mm,
I thought that I had been healed until some places got touched that
mm-hmm,
I was like, oh, I thought I was over that.
mm-hmm,
Spend more time being healed. Learn how to process through your emotions and
yeah,
don't make emotional choices. The
mm-hmm,
married Audra was told the engaged or the previous Audra, you're moving on your emotions.
yeah,
You're not hearing God. You're moving on your emotions and you're moving based on what you think is right. Think is a thought, which is a part of the soul, which is still an emotion. To think and to feel like it's my time to be married. Like that's
yeah,
what I went based on. I went based
yeah,
on I've been waiting over 10 years. At that point, I had been living celibate for like 10 plus years.
mm-hmm,
So that was a part of it. Another part of it was, well, he's the only person who approached me. Going back to just because he say it don't mean it's God. So I would
yeah,
definitely have told that girl, girl, just because he said you his wife don't mean that he heard God. Because
yeah,
he didn't hear God, you know.
yeah.
So I would definitely have like shook myself
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
said he's not hearing God because
Yeah.
of all that came after that
Yeah.
was experience was evidence that this ain't God. So I would have
Absolutely.
definitely said get healed, you spend more time getting healed. Don't make an emotional choice because you think it's time because of how long you've waited
Mm-hmm.
and not and even in the wait wasn't even scriptural to say just because I waited 10 years. Moses waited 40 plus years before God put him in his ministry.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't gonna talk about how long Abraham and Sarah waited to receive
Listen.
Isaac, which was the promise.
Right. The
You
promise.
know,
Yeah.
and Jesus didn't start his ministry for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So just say you waited 10 years, you ain't waited no time. That's what I would have told myself. You ain't waited long. Now
Yeah.
that I'm looking back, you
Right.
know, so wait a little longer, repent. Let me keep it real, repent and keep on moving. That's what I should
Yeah.
have done. And we can
Got it.
read between the lines of that.
Yeah.
Repent and keep
Yeah.
on moving. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's just being real
Yeah.
that, you know, that's what I would have told because of all that I can, as that married woman, being in the midst of all that loss, you know, going to jail for the first time, had never been to jail in my whole entire life, had my car repossessed, he ran off with everything. God wasn't in that. So I would have told that yeah, wait. you ain't ready, you ain't healed completely and from some
Yeah.
things, you still got some low self-esteem issues going on, I would have told me to wait, repent, keep on moving, and wait on God.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said.
That's good. That's good. And you know, sometimes we put ourselves in relationships or in situations, and we tell everybody, we, you know, say
Right.
this is what's going on, you know, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm healed, I'm whole. We say all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we realize that, uh-oh,
Yeah.
something's not right. But because we've put it out there now, there's this
Right.
obligation
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
let me just try and make it work. Let me
Mm-hmm.
push through. We
Yes.
start looking past the red flags. We
Right.
start, you know, blinking. Like we become like
Uh-huh.
blinkers. Like, okay, maybe it's not red. Maybe it's, oh, that's yellow. You know, we create our own color flags, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I thought that was red. That's orange.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
we have to we have to pay attention to the
Mm-hmm.
flags that are
Mm-hmm.
being waved, right? We see
Yes.
them. We
Yeah.
see them, and we wait until the latter part of the relationship before
Mm-hmm.
we begin to complain. I remember being in a relationship, and I would tell myself, if he does this thing one more time, this is it. Well, he would do this thing one more time, and I'd say it again. Okay, one more time. If he do it again, right? That goes back to us saying loving yourself. Because
Right.
if I loved myself enough, when he did said thing the first time, I would have removed myself from the relationship because I know that I deserve better, right?
Right.
Or I
Right.
know that that's not for me. Or I know that he still has some healing to do. Or
Right.
still has some work to do. But we sometimes, because we want to be in relationship, because we
Mm-hmm.
want to be married, we want to be loved,
Right. Right.
we accept some things. We lower our
Mm-hmm.
standards. The
Right.
expectations
Right.
go out of the window, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
we're just arms wide open for pain.
Yeah.
And that's pretty
Yeah.
much what it is. Melanie says, my late husband was a good man, but I married him because he asked. I never thought what
Mm.
type of husband he would be or what type of wife I desired to be. That's good, Melanie. That's really, really good, because
Mm. Wow.
I want you to know that you're not in that by yourself.
Yeah.
There's somebody today that is married to a good man. He's a good man,
Mm.
right? And we say I do, or we say yes when they say, will you marry me? Because you want to be married, right?
Right.
But
Right.
did you actually dissect what type of husband you need, what type of wife
Right.
you have to be? Did you dissect that thing? Because many times if we make that list, and I'm saying list, I mean it can be written, of course, because you know we you see it. But when you
Right.
make that list, when you speak out what it is that you desire and God gives the approval, you will recognize it or not. You will recognize it when it shows up,
That's
or you
right.
will recognize that this isn't it when whatever shows up.
Right. Right.
And we have to be strong enough to say, this ain't it.
Right. And the list, let me add, the list is not overrated.
The list is not overrated.
That list is not overrated because you wrote a list because you know what you need. People
Mhm.
who don't know who they are and what they need, they won't write a list. That's
Yeah.
that's good. Because
Yeah.
they'll say, "Oh, whatever comes, it's got to be what God sends me is what I need."
Right.
No, you have to know what you need because again, it goes back to what are you projecting out there. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
your list is a projection of what you need. I wrote my list after the divorce, after I started loving myself and, understanding who I was, because
Yeah.
at that stage in life, I really wasn't mature enough to understand who I was. And
Yeah.
honestly, there's still some days I'm still learning who I am
Oh,
because we
absolutely.
get we get caught up in the fog of life and the obligations of bills and this person pulling in relationships that we have to sit and take time to get to understand who we are and what we really need. And when you
Yeah.
understand what you need, you will make a list. And when that
Hmm.
person shows up, if you got a list of 20 things and they ain't at least 15 of those things, they ain't the one. It can't be no half a goal. No, it ain't 50% on the list. It's got to be at least 75, 85% of that list that they have to meet that criteria, because everything on the list is, I'm not talking about he got to be tall, dark, and handsome. I'm not talking about that kind of
I would,
stuff.
yes, yes, make
I'm,
it
I'm not.
plain.
I'm not talking about looks. I'm not talking
Right.
about he got to be a certain height. I'm talking about characteristics. I'm
Yeah.
talking about his character, his morals. What is he doing with his life? Is his if I'm an entrepreneur, my husband has to be. It's on my list. He's got to be an entrepreneur. I love God. He's got to love God. He's got to have a
Yeah.
relationship with God. I'm talking
Yeah.
about those kinds of things. He
Right.
got to have a desire for children. Yes, that's on my list. If
Yeah.
you know my story, you understand why that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that the list, and I didn't necessarily put on the list. Well, he can't have no children because at my age, what is the likelihood of that? It's likely,
Right.
but if that's not a deal breaker, so to speak.
Right.
But you
Right.
got to have a list, because this is
Yes.
what you are telling the every man that comes to you. If they're not sent, really truly sent by God, they're not going to get your spiritual memo. That's good. When you write that list, you wrote a
Yeah.
spiritual memo of
Yeah.
who he should be and what he should have. And when he
Yeah.
comes, he's going to already know what's on the memo, if God
Yeah.
is the one truly sending him. So the list
Yeah.
is not, it's not overrated. It's not,
It's not. It's not. Even the words say that, write the vision to make it plain.
Mm-hmm,
So when we
mm-hmm.
write the vision to make it plain, we're first making it plain to ourselves, right?
Right.
So
So
if
they
I
that come can read it and run.
they can come and read it and run. Exactly. But if I wrote this list for myself, now I'm holding myself accountable to keep my standard, right?
Right.
So when I start saying,
Yes.
well, I mean, he don't have this, but okay, I'm gonna go ahead and no,
Right.
because now I'm looking at this list and I'm like, but you said, you told yourself that
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
what you desire. Are you settling, or is this something that God said, go ahead
Right.
and approve, right? So again,
Right.
it goes back to being in alignment with God, with trying the Spirit by the Spirit, because yes, there are some things that we are going to desire for ourselves that
Mm-hmm.
God will allow,
Right.
but it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be something that He put on the list. I want
Right.
everything
Right.
that God has. I want God's list for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
God,
Mm-hmm.
what is the list? Because you know better than me. Because my picker been off. I've been picking them wrong.
Right.
Listen, so you know what's best, and so I want to be available to what you say that I should have on the list. How should that be? How should that look? Right? What does that look like, so that when he does show up, I'm like, wow, check, check, check. This is
Mm-hmm.
good, right? But as
Mm-hmm.
you said, okay, he needs to be tall, dark, bald,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. That's
Right.
Tam stuff. That's that's
Right.
things
Right.
that God
Right.
is like, well, if that's what you want, I'm not against that. But
Right.
does he love me? Like, what's his relationship
Right.
with me?
Right.
What's his you're talking about needing someone who is an effective communicator. How are you going to find out if he's an effective communicator?
Right.
Are you
Right.
guys communicating?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
only texting? So
Right.
there's so
Right.
much to becoming, again,
Mm-hmm.
there's so much
Uh-huh.
to becoming that woman, that man that God has have you to be for the person he is creating for you. So much to that. Well, we're so
Yeah.
quick to look at the other person, but there's still some developing that we need to do for ourselves to be
Right.
ready for that person that God is
Right.
developing. So while I'm over here working on me, he's probably over there working on him. And there's
Yes.
still work to be done once we come together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Yes,
not going
yes.
to be a perfect fit. It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be a
Mm-hmm.
perfect fit in God, but then there's
Right.
the work that comes with that
Mm-hmm.
after the
Mm-hmm.
fact.
Yes.
So
To
talk
become one.
to
Become.
become one, and which is
Mm-hmm.
a hard that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a challenge in itself because I'm a woman and he's a man. So
Mhm.
that difference is big. It's the biggest difference, right?
Yeah.
How we were raised. Maybe I was
Right.
raised in a two-parent home, two-parent loving home. Maybe he was raised in a
Mhm.
two-parent. So we can say, were you raised in a home with your both your parents? Yes. Go
Right.
further. What did you see? What was the best
Mhm.
example, right? How did you see resolve problems be resolved? Like, we have to ask those questions, because yeah, we both were raised in a two-parent home, but I may not have been in a loving home. My parents didn't
Mhm.
teach me what love was, but maybe somebody, and I'm not saying that, these are examples, but maybe
Right.
his family showed him all of those things. Maybe his parents set him down and showed him, how to handle his financial affairs. Maybe mine
Mhm.
didn't. So you have to ask the right
Right.
questions,
Right.
because the surface stuff will have us backing out 4 years
Right.
down the line, five
Right.
years down.
Right.
After we said I do, we'll be at divorce court because, man, I didn't know he was like that or she was like that. Like, gosh,
Mm.
we just don't ask the right questions. And no
Right.
question is a wrong question.
Right. Right. When you're talking about your life being on the line, you
Yeah.
know, I wish I would have asked the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
instead of being so caught up in the euphoria
Mm-hmm.
of, this is how he feel, you high off of love,
Yeah.
and being high off of love caused me not to ask the right questions, and
Yeah.
actually afraid to ask the right questions, because when
Oh,
again you're not healed and you're not delivered, so you finally got somebody that'll marry you, you don't want to say anything or do anything that you think will cause them to run off.
you know
So
why? Because you have standards. So the only
right.
time you're afraid to ask a question because you're scared that that answer is going to go against what your morals are, you won't
Mm-hmm.
ask them,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
puts you into a place of being desperate,
Yes,
which makes me ask
yes,
the question
yes.
again, do you love you?
Right,
You see what I'm
right.
saying? Do we love
Mm-hmm.
ourselves past what we want, past our physical, our fleshly desires? Do
Right,
we love
right.
ourselves past that? Ask the questions and ask it early on, so that you aren't stuck in a position where you're like, but I really love him, and no, he got the potential or she has potential.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
do it in the beginning. Do it in the
Right,
beginning.
right, right, right.
So
And don't
yeah,
be afraid.
do not be afraid. You saw the
Yeah,
flags. You saw
yeah,
all of the
yeah.
flags. You
If you
saw them.
don't do nothing, look at my life and say, yeah. Look at what
Hmm.
I went through because I was afraid to ask the questions. I didn't have the
Hmm.
standards. I was
Hmm.
just desperate for whomever would say I do or would marry me. And
Hmm.
all of the trouble I went through after that, yeah, we going in asking every question from A to Z.
Right, right. And then
So,
if he or she, feels that this is too much, you're asking too many questions. But if I know that I'm going into a relationship, or not this particular relationship, but if I know that my end goal is marriage, then I'm definitely going to ask these questions,
right,
right?
the
If you're
hard
just
ones,
somebody
yeah.
that I don't want anyone in this zone. I just want friend zone stuff. Like, we go
Mm-hmm.
eat, we go to the movies, we just hang out, we're friends, we're good. A lot of that, now some of it is still necessary to ask, because we have
Right.
to be mindful of the company that we keep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bad company corrupts good morals every single time. And so
Right.
we don't want to get so relaxed to where we're accepting certain things in our lives. And now when we do begin to phase over into another place of our life, to dating someone with the potential of with the prospect of marriage, now that what has been corrupted, where we used to have certain morals, we won't
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Right.
Because we allow
Right.
things to shift how we think, how we do, where we go. So we have to be
Mm-hmm.
very careful with that. Melanie says finding out that we don't love ourselves is painful.
Yes, it is. It
It is.
is.
It's
Yeah.
very painful, because
Mm-hmm.
we think we love ourselves, right?
Right.
Until we
Right.
break it down,
Yeah.
until we break it down to the smallest parts, like we talked
Mhm.
about. What are you putting in your body?
Mhm.
Tells us if
Mhm.
you if that tell you if you really love yourself or not. And we
Right.
don't look at it in that manner. We think about the bigger picture, and God is
Right.
saying the
Right.
small stuff. I speak the small things as well. So yeah,
Right.
but again, I wanted to come on here and talk about, what we've talked about tonight, because I think it's really important that for us singles, that we understand um, what we deserve, that we understand
Right.
how important it is for us to become what we need to be before we step into marriage, before we step into serious relationships, before we make these commitments, right? Which is why I'm phasing into talking about the vow and
Right.
breaking down each line, because we should not be accepting anything and anybody in our lives, especially, I mean, anybody, period, but especially if we're claiming to be kingdom builders, if we're claiming to be
Right.
children of God, there is a standard, because we have to represent and represent who He is as a single person. And when we're married, that marriage should represent God. Your finances should represent God. How you dress should represent
Right.
God. How you speak, everything should represent God. And so when we look in the mirror in the morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you look in the mirror, if we can't answer yes when we ask ourselves, does this represent God? How I spent my money today, did that
Right.
represent God? The
Right.
decisions that I made, the way I responded to my boss, my wife, my husband, my girl, my guy, whatever, did
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
represent and represent God? And I always talk about represent and represent, because there are some people out there who know who God is, but they have taken a back seat. So we got to
Mhm.
represent Him. We have to show who
Mhm.
He is. We have to be the example. But then you have those that aren't believers. They just don't know Him. So we have to
Right.
represent Him,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so we have to be very careful with that. So,
Yeah.
Audra, again, I thank you so much for coming on tonight. If you had
Absolutely.
to leave something with our viewers, something encouraging for our single viewers, what would that be?
Um, excuse me. I would like to piggyback off of. I don't recall her name, but
Melody.
excuse me. She was on the show talking about what to do in the waiting process, and
Okay.
and I would leave with someone who's single to maximize your singleness. Maximize what you can do to be productive while you wait.
Yeah.
And I believe that's
That
what
was
she was
Carla.
talking. Yeah,
Carla Gaskins. Hmm.
yeah, she was talking about that. And once you've maximized your singleness, then God can send the person that will complement what you have maximized. you
Mm.
know do what it takes to allow God to use you in this season, because
Yeah.
going back to what I was saying about when I became a married woman, it was no longer, it was supposed to be no longer you making decisions on your own, but corporate decisions together. So do what you want to do while you can.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
once you come under that covenant, you can't. I won't be able to make the decisions that I make now. I make those
Yeah.
decisions based on what's best for me.
Yeah.
But when I make decisions in the future, it's not based on what's best for me. It's based on what's best for us, which
Yes.
means that there are some decisions I won't be able to make. So maximize your singleness. If you want to
Yeah.
take trips, and like now, I'm kind of like free flowing, till I
Yeah.
get to my final destination.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
was married, I wouldn't be free floating nowhere. I
Right.
would be somewhere sitting myself down.
Absolutely.
So I'm enjoying. If I want to pick up and take a trip and be gone for 7 days, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's not something I'm going to be free to do when I get married.
Right.
So don't be so desperate that you want to be in a marriage tied down, but enjoy your time.
Yeah.
There's no, I used to feel like it was a plague to be single. because when I would go
Mm.
around married women, they would treat me some kind of way because I wasn't an ugly woman. So they were afraid that either their husband wanted me or I want. So I've always, I didn't really, in different fronts. Let me say that in different fronts, I didn't enjoy my singleness because there were certain things that came with it that I didn't like. But then when I started to love myself, I started to embrace who I was. I stopped letting people make me feel bad about what I possessed. And,
Yeah.
I even got flack from other singles who had children because I wasn't a single parent. So when I
Mm.
say I've dealt with it on every end of the spectrum, I've dealt with it on every end. But I finally got over what people thought. I finally got over what people felt. And I finally started embracing me and living for me and
Yeah.
enjoying what God had gifted me with and the talents and the gifts that He given me. And I finally learned how to shine for who I was. This is maximizing my singleness.
Yeah.
So I would say maximize your singleness, love yourself, take trips, get your feet done,
Yeah.
get your hair done, put
Right.
on makeup, do a photo
Yeah.
shoot, do things that
Right.
will pick you up when you don't
Yeah.
have anybody else. Because I know that struggle of not having nobody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that struggle of don't even have children to fill the void sometimes. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
on every end of the spectrum, but I've learned to maximize my time because when that season shifts that I'm married with children, there will be no more Audra by herself.
Right.
There will
Right.
be no more of that. So I would never be able to return to this season ever again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've learned to maximize, write every book I can write, help every person I can help. Because once I have a family, there will be those boundaries where I'm not going to be open and available to everybody at their beck and call anymore.
That's good.
So if people shift their mindset, because I believe it's a shifting of the mindset, I
Mm-hmm.
had to shift my mindset and say, okay, I'm maximizing this season because when it changes, I'm going to be in a different realm, So maximize the time, do what you have put your hands to do it with all your might. Write a book, start a business, get promoted on your job, help somebody,
Yeah.
go volunteer at a soup kitchen. If God didn't give you a business, go volunteer, go
Yeah.
help bless somebody who's homeless.
Serve. Yeah.
Maximize whatever ministry that God has put in you, whatever anointing gift, maximize it. I can't stop
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maximize that thing, blow it out. Maximize means take it to as far as it can go,
Yeah.
because you can't return. You're not supposed to return. Let me say that. Once you
Yeah.
get married, you're not supposed to return to the single season again,
Yeah.
unless you become widowed or, something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Mm-hmm.
maximize this time because
Yeah.
if you have a mindset that it's not going to return, then it won't. So,
That's a good word. That's
yeah.
a good word. Maximize your singleness. Maximize your. Don't be so anxious. Don't be so ran to jump into it because you have the married women saying, "If I was single," and then you have the single
Right.
women saying, "I wish I was married." Right. So
Mm-hmm.
there's benefits to both.
Right.
Right. So just do what you need to do in the season that you are in. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, for the single women, for the single men, maximize your singleness. And then
Yes.
allow God to bless you even in that because He can and He
Mm-hmm.
will and He does.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
again, Audra, I thank you so much for coming on and helping me really end this season, this single series. I mean, I really appreciated your time. I do not take for
Absolutely.
granted. To all of you who are here, thank you for coming on, hopping on. For those that are catching a replay, thank you. Hashtag replay so that we know that you were here. And we will be back in 3 weeks. I'll see you guys in 3 weeks. We will break down the vow. I have some
Mm-hmm.
amazing couples that are going to be on and just, really, really talking about the importance of knowing what you're committing to before committing to it. So, again, you guys, thank you for joining us. I love you, Audra. I love you. I will
Love
talk to you
you.
soon. Have a good one.
All right.